a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a better day in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Would you be my neighbor? Love's in need. Got a little whole song list of love today. Don't delay. Send yours in right away. How's everybody doing today? In these last days of the summer. I won't pour water on it. But some people, my grandmother when she was alive, the next coming season when the trees are changing was her favorite time of year. I must admit it is not mine because I know what's coming next. So I'm trying to enjoy every single moment that I can of sunshine and rain. Because sooner or later we will be shoveling out. Welcome, everybody. Yes, oh, wow, what a great way to start the show. Talking about snow. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good. I'm a little tired, but I'm here.
A little tired? Where'd you a little tired from?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you might have had football camp or something.
Yeah, we definitely have football camp, long days, and so between that and juggling everything else, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So energy's a little down. We've been going hard for about 9 straight days. So yeah.
All right. Well, everything is about football right now.
Yes.
I mean, front of the first part of the news always now. I mean, the like online is football, everything. I mean, I know Buffalo is a big football town, but man, and the pumpkins are already out on shelves, and in a minute, the trees are going to be up, Christmas trees.
Yep.
So. I don't know this season. I'm trying to hold on to summer like a baby holds on to his pacifier. It's like, no, please stay around a little while longer. But it's been a great summer.
Yeah.
As far as weather-wise. A couple things. Let me talk first health-wise. COVID numbers starting to inch back up in different places. And so just want to encourage people, to be as careful as you possibly can. I know, and I think I'm permanently, I've always been a protector of space. I don't like it. You're talking to me, you don't really have to be right in my face. And I have a 2-foot rule, kind of like you should be at least. And I don't mean 2 feet. Like move yourself 2 feet back, and that's even too close. Mm-hmm. But I think people have to remember that COVID is still here. People are still catching COVID constantly, and so it's okay to still safely social distance. Although now people are dealing with it a lot better, especially if you're vaccinated. But at the end of the day, it's still there, folks, and we still have to respect that space. I have no problem moving back when somebody's too close now.
Absolutely.
Just kind of, I never try to be rude, but I also don't need you right there in my face. And if you got something you need to talk to me privately about, let's go to an area where you can talk and still have some distance. But I'm noticing people kind of forgetting that this COVID is still around, and when they want to talk to you, get right up in your face, and it's like, move back.
Yeah, I try to at least keep the arm distance. Like, just give me at least an arm. I don't need you up close, and like you said, and if you're trying to whisper and all of that, then go to the side. Don't be here. You can come over here a little bit. I'm with you completely on that.
Yeah, it's I was on a plane recently, and you don't have to wear your mask anymore, but it was so many people coughing and sneezing, and I just slowly went in that bag, pulled it out, and put that mask on because I don't want to be sick. And I didn't for the whole trip wear a mask, but when I was in situations in which I thought, okay, now you just coughed again, and you got the heavy cough, and I know now everybody's afraid to cough because if you cough, people gonna think you got COVID and yada yada yada. But yeah, so we got to be careful, folks. We got to be careful out there with that. So much happening in Buffalo. Just had Pine Grill reunion, taking it to the streets. I think did that happen already? There's just a lot that in the summer for Buffalo for us to do. So, I say big ups to all those folks who are continuing Marnetta's festival. People, after being inside for 2 years, still, people people are coming back out. So that's pretty exciting. But I really did want to start off the show talking about COVID because I want to remind everybody, if these numbers start going back up, things could, and because the strains are not as bad, but they could start shutting back down. So we just got to be really, really super aware of that, so that, especially with our kids going back to school, still a shortage, by the way. And today, by the way, we're going to be talking about some stereotypes. So get ready. Talk about stereotypes that people hold, some that we hold against ourselves as African Americans, and others white folks hold still in their mind about black people. So we're going to be talking about that. And those of you who are online, feel free to start mentioning some. I'm going to give some information of some truths, and then we're going to talk about some stereotypes. And the reason I think we need to talk about it is because some of this ideology of white supremacists is around stereotypes of African Americans. And if we don't talk about those stereotypes and set those stereotypes straight, then we will even at times start to believe them as African Americans. So that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. So what I think is important is we don't want to start seeing a shutdown. We don't want to start seeing with our kids going back to school. So what I was going to is bus driver shortage, and it's still going on, but big ups to the Buffalo Board of Education and to leadership. They are really, really pressing hard. And I think I read somewhere the other day that there was over 100 and some bus drivers in training right now. No, if you brand new out there, I mean, I wish that had been in training in January. So by this time, you as a big vehicle with my kids on it to be riding around the city. But I mean, this is nationwide, so I just want to be clear. This is not just Buffalo, New York. This is nationwide. There are drivers that have quit. And a lot of folks have found at home online jobs, and they're just not returning to wanting to be in a box with a bunch of kids with split shifts. We've talked about that before. So that is causing there to be a national crisis. I know the Honorable Sharon Belton-Cotman had surfaced an idea, and now it's actually being talked about, but they're saying they can't get that done right away, and that's for parents or grandparents or whomever to transport children for a stipend. So they would get a stipend for their gas, and I think, hey, you got to at least this idea on the table. One of the challenges is, though, gas is so high, but yeah, the parent wouldn't be able to take their child, from what I read, and somebody else's. They can only take theirs, of course, for insurance reasons and all that. So that's something out there. But if you got parents who work, it's going to benefit the parents who either work at night and they want to take their kids, their scholars, but a lot of parents do not have transportation. They're also talking about, school starting in a couple weeks, moving the elementary schools up earlier so that they can have double runs on some routes. If this isn't settled, it's going to be another nightmare year for Buffalo Public Schools and getting our children to school, because I can't even count how many times I've had to leave work to pick up the youngest from school because a bus driver called in sick, or because the bus driver didn't show up, or because a bus driver quit, and then the school doesn't know when to call. If they call too early, and they don't, and they get a replacement. Now you've come to get your child. That's happened to me. If they call too late, then you got children literally who got out of school at 3:00, sometimes sitting, waiting to be picked up to 5 and 6 o'clock, because every parent cannot just leave, and every parent doesn't have a huge support network where somebody can go and get them. So this is national. And I think that when you talk about the importance of education, and I said this recently in an article that I was contributed to in the Buffalo News about subsidizing businesses, we have to pay attention to education in this country. And if there is a national problem, it is going to take national attention. There are some areas this isn't going to affect. Suburban areas, for instance, is not going to affect as much because they have means in many parts to be able to figure it out. But in areas where drivers are feeling overworked, you put them on a double run, it's going to affect our children the most, and our children are the ones who need the education the most.
Absolutely.
And I've said this over and over. I know that people think that local politicians can wave the magic wand and there's all kinds of money there. And I'll just talk locally. Let's be honest. We've been on the edge of broke for the last 10 years, and the money that the city is seeing right now is only temporary. This COVID money, American Rescue Act money, monies that's starting to come in since TOPS situation, all this is temporary, folks. All this is temporary. But we have national problems that need continual attention, like the bus driver shortage, and because it's going to affect overwhelmingly poor people more than anybody. And I think it's those type of things where people get kind of disappointed with government, is because they feel that it is not paying attention. Let's see. Faye Hemphill says, we used to start at 9. We'll be starting at 7 this year. My gosh. She says we need bus aides watching over these babies on the buses also. I totally agree. She said our job's going to excuse the late parents for picking up, Faye, or dropping off their kids. Jobs, that's a question for each job and each employer. It'll be different. But I would encourage, and I hope that the Board of Education encourages jobs to work out types of plans so that these parents, because education is important. And if you can't get the child there, and at times there was no buses, or the bus would be so late. So this is a problem. We had the means to do it. Other people do not.
They really don't.
And you got to pay attention to that. So I don't envy the Board of Education members at this period. I never have, to be very honest, because it is a tough job. I want to talk about some stereotypes. And part of the reason is, and I really don't, I was in an article that was written in the Buffalo News this week, and it was about franchises. It was about businesses on the East Side. And my take on it simply was this, and they asked about the subway. They did a photo shoot of the subway, put a picture of me in there. And I talked about in this article the fact that basically businesses are in business to make money. And if they can't make money, and I use these words, I said, it's unfair, but it's basically it's about economics. And so if they see an area like the East Side and they say they do a whole analysis, I've been involved in it, I know. So they look and they say, okay, if we put if we put a Walmart in this location, they measure what will be the likelihood of what's called shrink, which means theft. And they look at the statistics of that area, the economics of that area, the transportation in that area. It's a whole lot of stuff. And I was talking about how when we had the subway here, and some of it wasn't in the article, and some of it I talked about, and then I said, that's not important to the subject, but how one of the tough things. One is just, subways all over the country. The Subway Corporation is seeing a reduction in their restaurants, period. Every African-American owned subway that I know of locally, has closed down. It was a big thing at one point, and then other things came about. And one of the things that changed our economics, our income with the subway, was when local stores would accept, and still do, although it may be illegal, not food stamps, what do you call it now? EBT. For a sub, which really by EBT, you're not supposed to be making the food and all that. But I ain't hating. Hey, it is what it is. It's not my job to police that. But it is about economics. And so I looked at a couple comments just to see that, and it was like the stereotype of people and how they look at African Americans, which goes all the way back to when we were enslaved, and then the images that media put out about us. So in general, and I'm just talking in general, there are especially, now white supremacists just want to be white supremacists, but I just want to talk about average white America and sometimes how they see us as African Americans. So I had on a suit because I had to do a funeral or something. And it was like, look at his suit. And then someone said, I bet you he doesn't live in the neighborhood. No, they actually said I didn't, and da-da-da-da. And I thought to myself, the stereotypes that are out there of African Americans, especially African American men. Mm-hmm. And then I did some research and looking at Pew Research Center, and how this all relates to when some white police officers feel that they can put their knee on the neck of a black man, or regardless of what he's doing, can talk to him in any way that they want to. This is more than just about police. It is about, for some, how whites and even some blacks have picked this up, African Americans,
absolutely,
of how they see us. And if they see us and say, I remember somebody who's running for office right now, I won't mention any names, I ain't trying to fight with nobody, but when they talked about black churches, they're like, and these poor black churches and these poor people, black people in churches, that's so racist, regardless of whether it comes out of the mouth of a white person or a black person. And I'll tell you why. Why do you think if a church is full of black people that they're poor, that the people sitting in the pews are poor? I'll give you an example. At this church, we got judges and lawyers and bankers. And at the end of the day, we shouldn't have to feel guilty because of the stereotype that if you are black, or if you are part of a black organization or a black religious community or spiritual community, that you have to be poor. And that it's like you danged if you do, danged if you don't. That if you dress well, that you got it, that as an African American, and at one time I thought Buffalo News should remove the comments, and I still do. But if you really want to see racism, read when there is a white male dressed well. There's never a comment about a white person dressed well.
Never.
But if an African American, and it still trips me out that bachelor's degree, master's degree, Air Force, working since 14, savings account, checking account, investments, all legit. That black men in general, at times they give black women a pass, right? But black men especially are demonized if they have something. And not only from white America, but there's some black Americans that pick up that same type of thing. And unless you are a performer, and this all goes back, what people don't understand, this goes back to Aunt Jemima. This goes back to what we were portrayed in on the Little Rascals, and other things that if you keep me laughing, or if you keep my economics up, so I'm betting on the football game and I'm betting on, the basketball game, but we have no problem in talking about owners when we talk about sports teams.
Yep.
None. No problem talking about that because that's seen as successful. But if a black man who lives in a neighborhood, dresses nice, there's a problem. Or has a vehicle that they like, it's a problem. But because of the stereotypes that we allow to continue and say nothing, and then repeat it ourselves.
Yep.
So let me give you some facts before I go into the stereotypes. I'll read some of the comments in just a second. The black population in the United States is growing, and this is from the Pew Research Center. In 2019, there were 46.8 million people who self-identified as black, making up roughly 14% of the country's population. This marks a 29% increase. So it talks about that, right? That black America is definitely growing. But there were some things here. It talks about the U.S. black population is young and growing. The median age of black people in 2019 was 32. Wow. 6 years younger than the U.S. population median age of 38. Roughly 30% of the entire black population was below the age of 20. I found that the majority, and this is just some facts, of African Americans still live in the South. Only 10% in the West, 17% Midwest, and up here in the Northeast, where we think we're so far advanced, 17%, only 17%. Found out that the median income for black folks is $44,000. Broader analysis shows that more than half of black households earn less than $50,000, while 46% make $50,000 or more. Now I say that because when people try to say one of the stereotypes is that all black people are poor, it's not true.
No,
it's just not true. Do we have too high a percentage of black people who are poor? Absolutely. But when you talk about black people, the first thing you say is in your head, poverty and poor, it's a stereotype. And the facts don't say that 90% of black people are poor. It's just not true. And I think that if we are not exposed to other things, I'll move on. Almost 3 in 10 make $75,000 or more, including 18% that make $100,000 or more. Now here's another stereotype that every time you see a black child is probably from they're probably living in a single parent household. Here is what the Pew in 2019, family households, 38% married couple, 38% married couple, 32% female householder, 6% male householder, and then there's a 24% non-family household. So there is over, 38% of people living in married households. And to make that assumption of got to be from a single mother, got to be from a household where there's only one parent is a stereotype. And the reason I think that's important, tying in education, one of the other things that I did was to look at the substantial, and this is all of these are scholarly articles, so I hope I don't bore you. This is from Harvard School of Public Health. Substantial racial stereotyping toward young children of color found among white adults who work with them. So if we don't deal with the stereotyping and stop the stereotyping and then don't push that stereotype, you got to speak truth to that stereotype. Or else what occurs, I'll just read you a little, it's not Darius, I looked up the research. New research from the Australian National University, Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and the University of Michigan has found that young children and youth of color in the U.S. face significant racial stereotyping from adults who work with them. Let me read that again, because the article deals with white adults, but the introduction of the article says that it's significant stereotyping from adults, period. And that's what I mean when I go back to, at times it may begin with some white folks, but if it's carried on by black folks, it's a problem. If you are a black teacher, black principal, a black administrator, and you see that stereotypical behavior happening from your colleagues or from anybody else, to me, it's your responsibility to speak up or to do something to make it known that, number one, all black children are not poor. Number two, all of them don't come from single-family households. Number three, all of them are not, undereducated, who come from undereducated houses. The problem, especially in the Northeast, and when I start putting these pieces together, in the Northeast, let me say that number again. We don't have that big population like the South. So now, if in the Northeast, I'm just spitting fact right here. If in the Northeast, over here where we live at, over on our side of the world, if we only have 17% of African Americans, then you're making assumptions based on a small sampling of people. Now take your tail below that Mason-Dixie line, and what you're going to find is a whole different type of way of thinking. Now, I'm a witness to this. I went to Livingstone College, a historically black college. When I got to Livingstone, it blew my mind, because maybe some of the stereotypes that I picked up growing up in Buffalo and in the Northeast, I've said this before, so I'm telling you, the biggest car I ever seen was Herb Bellamy's. And I'm not talking about the Herb Bellamy who's alive now. His dad had a car, had a cell phone when cell phones were not popular, because it was a car, it was like a house phone in his car. But he also had businesses. He had houses, he had property, and he came from Burgaud, North Carolina, the same place my dad comes from, Burgaud, North Carolina. But he came here, however he invested his money, you would have never looked at Herb Bellamy and say, that's a poor man. But Herb Bellamy's of today, and I mean this as black men who will start their own businesses, who have money, at times are stereotypically, they got to be stealing. Yep. They got to be doing something dirty against the system. Why? Why can't a black man or black woman work their natural butt off, do all the right things that white America allegedly does, and without being the target of, you have to be doing something wrong? Because I think the examples that we see and the stereotypes we carry in the North, and then you go below the Mason-Dixie line, and I see this man drive up in a brand new Benz who happened to be the president of the college. Never, I think it was Dr. Shipman at the time, never did I hear somebody say, oh, Dr. Shipman got to be ripping off Livingstone.
Right.
No, Dr. Shipman had a PhD. Dr. Shipman worked his way up the ranks. And in the South, where you have 56% of African Americans living, 56%, they're okay with you have a black real estate company, and I'm going to use you on purpose. They're okay with when you go into town saying, yeah, we're going to take you over here for soul food, and not dog the soul food restaurant that they go to because they got a bad oxtail one time. We have a tendency that once a black business doesn't do us right, allegedly, I ain't going back, and I'm going to tell everybody that because the chicken wasn't as crispy, but you will take your tail to a Colonel's restaurant. And if it's bad service, anything else, as long as you got a coupon, you good. This is a problem. And it is a problem that then leads literally to our death. Yes. Because if we have the stereotype about each other and we don't respect each other, then other people feel that they don't need to respect us either. Because they hate each other.
Yep. It's interesting that you kind of went here today because I guess picking back up on what you originally said, since the turn of the 20th century, it was the stereotype of making sure black people were looked at as villains,
yes,
demons, and you can watch the original Birth of a Nation from 1916, and that's how it was portrayed. You know, white man in blackface going to terrorize white women through the woods, and all of these things. It was portrayed this way. I was in another conversation with someone, I think yesterday, and they said that even Africans, when they come to America, they're being told, oh, you don't want to mingle with African Americans because they're this, this, and this.
Yes.
So you have that. Coincidentally, with 2 hours later, at a football camp, an older white coach asked me, why do the young black men call each other the N-word? And it was the toughest question to try to answer because you know, we normally go, oh, it's a term of endearment for us and blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, but isn't that like hurtful? And he was like, because I normally hear it when you guys are arguing with each other. And I'm like, and I'm trying to find this balance without justifying. Yeah. Because to him, he's like, well, why can't I say it? Or why can't I do it?
I almost said a bad word. He dang on know why he can't say it, but go ahead.
But he was saying, and then I said, you know, internally, you know, we say it to each other, but of course we never going to take it externally. And he was like, I understand. I said, just like you can say things internally to a Caucasian race, that we can't say.
Absolutely.
And then he was like, oh, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. But he just was in this frame mind like, but doesn't it hurt each other? Don't you hurt each other when you say it? And like you said, I think when we accept some of this and we're conditioned to treat each other bad, we're conditioned to put each other down, we're conditioned to be like, oh, well, they're darker than I am, so you know, now we're Jim Crowed and now hating our darker skinned brothers and sisters. So this has been almost 100 plus years of doing this to each other.
Yeah, and it's sad. Let me read you a little bit more of this article from Harvard. The national study analyzed for the first time stereotypes held by white adults who work or volunteer with children across the U.S., examining their reported attitudes toward adults, teenagers, and children from a range of racial and ethnic backgrounds. And this was a study just published a couple of years ago. I want to get to some of black children were seen less negatively than black adults, but were seen more negatively than children from other racial groups, except for Native American and Hispanics. The lead author on this said the study found high levels of negative racial stereotyping toward non-whites of all ages among adults working or volunteering with children. Highest levels of negative attitudes were found towards blacks across all stereotypes measured: lazy, unintelligent, violent, and having unhealthy habits. With Native Americans and Hispanic or Latinos seen as similarly negative on several stereotypes. These were most pronounced toward adults, but seen even toward young children ages 0 to 8. And I think this doesn't surprise me at all. Some of the strongest levels of negative stereotyping reported by white adults working with children were reported toward teenagers, with black teenagers and Native Americans close to 10 times more likely to be considered lazy than white adults. Black, Hispanic, Latino teens were between 1.5 to 2 times more likely to be considered violence-prone and unintelligent than white adults and white teens. And if we don't deal with this is, and I've had teachers say, "Oh, he's just lazy. He doesn't want to do his work."
Yep.
I've literally heard it. They're just lazy. But that's that stereotype that black students are lazy.
And they'll walk into classrooms or job interviews, conferences with that, like, oh, I'm already writing them off because they're lazy. It is just crazy because, like, even at the school I'm at now, and it was like, oh, we have this football team now, and it's predominantly African Americans to a school that didn't have a lot of them. And as soon as they hit campus, oh, be prepared because there's a lot of new students and they're going to need to be this. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, the fact that before the school year even started, you're already categorizing them into they're going to need all of this extra stuff. They're not going to be good students. We're going to have to be patient. We're going to have to work with them. But because, like you said, there's all these preconceived notions.
Yes.
And one of the biggest things that hurt me was, they have this HEOP program, which is to get maybe like a borderline student ready for the college semester. So if these students are already getting additional help, why then start judging when it's your job to prepare them for the semester? Because clearly they didn't come from the structure, the study habits, and everything. So your job is to prepare them for that instead of ridiculing them and judging them already.
And if they're already judging them, you're going to teach them and treat them a different way.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, I don't blame it on any kid if they've been in a system that was substandard. Let's be honest. Justine Harris says, Bishop, because folks have brainwashed us to think going to a private white institution is better and sometimes the only way to. But in the South, the attitude is what HBCU are you going to? Yeah, I'm telling you, Livingstone changed my life, literally, and how I saw myself, and how I saw others. And to this day, the people who I went to school with, many of them, I'm still in contact with. and they're not addicts, they're not thieves, they're not in jail. They're college professors, one college principal, not college, a college president, another a bishop of the AME Zion Church. The list goes on and on and on. Matter of fact, when I was researching for this, I found these black HBCU presidents got together. They have some type of conference every year. I'm looking through to see the people I know on it, people who I've been exposed to. And so when I see black success,
absolutely,
I'm excited. When I see black folks opening businesses, I'm excited. And have I had bad experiences at black businesses? You daggone Skippy. But have I had bad experiences at white businesses? You daggone Skippy. And to me, it's like unconscionable when we would like judge our own selves more harshly with the stereotypes. You brought up about light and dark. There's a stereotype that if you're light skinned, you're more intelligent than if you're dark skinned. There's a stereotype on especially children, on their hair, that if they have dreads, that they're violent, or they have a certain religious belief. These are all stereotypes, and I have to be honest. There are times that I let that stereotype kind of sink in sometime, maybe to my soul a little bit, because I'll overcompensate for being black at times. And what I mean about that, elevator door opens, I'm the only one on, white woman getting ready to enter. I feel like sometimes I gotta smile, especially if I'm not in a suit.
Yeah.
Like because if I got on, I told you, I wish somebody would do a study on this. How many times I've gotten off a plane and watched flight attendants, especially, and some black ones, speak to everybody getting off, or the captain, have a nice day, have a nice day. Then you get a especially African-American male. I've witnessed it, I've seen it. I promise you folks, I need to wear a GoPro just so you can see it. And then they start talking to each other. You're just like, dang. Like the stereotypical crap. I wrote down a whole list of stereotypes. Kamal says, this is how they made us. Yeah, I agree. But we've got to now unlearn what we've been taught and speak up when we see this stuff instead of being silent.
And, and one of my phrases that I hate the most, I really hate when people say, you guys just need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And my pushback is, but what if you never had the boots?
What if you ain't got the straps?
What if you ain't got the straps? Because other populations in this country had 400 plus years of free labor to set them up for now.
Yeah. Amen.
And we're constantly paying catch up, because even when you do throw us, the African American community, the little breadcrumbs, that's because you still have the loaf.
You better say it.
And so right now, so you can say, oh, you guys need to do better. You guys need to do better. But when you're the one determining what better is, we'll never catch up.
Well, it's the same thing, when I watch with the charter school movement. And just for transparency, we did have a charter school here. Not me. I wasn't on it. They would not even allow the church to participate in it. But they were so swift in shutting down several black charter schools here. Although the majority of students that were in those schools, because somebody will name a charter school, go, but this one is doing great. What I have found is that, to me, it becomes stereotypical. Yep. Oh, that's being run by black people. That's this, that, and other by black people. And it was just easier to shut them down. And I remember, and I spoke when I forgot whether it was the Board of Regents. It wasn't the Board of Regents. I forgot who chartered Stepping Stone. It was C something. Anyway, but it was through state of New York. And when they came in, and you had all of these parents saying, we need this school is important, and it was just like, boom, shut it down. I remember writing to them and asking. We had all these teachers on this side of the wall who wanted to help with tutoring the kids and all that. And I remember getting back a letter that said, if the church in any way participate, we'll shut the church. We'll not shut the church down. We'll shut the school down immediately. Like, what? Like, we couldn't even help our own kids. The heartbreak in that. So if you look at that and you look at that stereotype and what this research is saying, even the leaders, there are people who think Buffalo Public Schools is in worse conditions because we have black leaders.
Yep.
We've had white leaders. Let's come on now. Let's call the roll. Let's call the roll. Having white leaders wasn't what's going to turn it around or not turn it around. But sometimes even we believe that is better to go this way. What are some of the other things I wrote down? In healthcare, there's studies that say that there are, especially white professionals, think that more black people fake their pain. So that if we're in pain, they give you that, are in pain from 1 to 10. We say 10. The studies show that we are less likely to get the needs met as far as pain medication or anything else. That's that stereotypical way of thinking that black people are liars.
Yep.
And that we want pain medication to sell it. Folks, I'm not making this up. And there are black professionals out there who will tell you. They will tell you that part of, I'm so thankful for these black nurses that are out here and the union that they have or the group that they have, because they discuss stuff like this. They openly talk about the fact that they have seen doctors. And these are not just white doctors, by the way. They have seen doctors who a patient says they got a 10 in pain, and another patient says they have a 10 in pain. They have similar circumstances. And it has been proven in research that many times the African-American patient or the black patient is giving less care.
Yep. Believe it.
Listen, most black folk ain't they don't even want to go to the doctor, number one. So if you get a black person to go, and especially a black man, a lot of times he's in pain. To get him or something is going on. Because this is why, at times we die earlier than we need to because, not following up, and I'm partly guilty of that, not following up until there is a pain. A lot of people don't go in for the yearly checkups. So by the time we get in, things have advanced and there needs to be more intimate care. The other is that black folks are angry. And now, do we have some black folks who are angry? Yes. But let's not get it twisted. There are white folks who are angry.
Yep.
We just had an idiot come through and kill 10 of our people. So sometimes it's not anger, it's just disappointment in the system.
Yeah. So
this thought of every black person is angry, I hate this when you're talking to somebody white and, you just met them, they go, you're so nice. What the flip?
Articulate.
What did you expect me to be? Like, do you believe the hype that everybody you meet of color is angry and mean? Now, I will say this. We do have too many of our young people angry right now. And I'm thankful that people are getting mental health counseling. People are articulating their feelings more and more and more. I shared on this show last week. Was I on last week? The week before? I was here last week.
Yes.
About my daughters and wanting to spend more time. Well, maybe I needed to do, not maybe, I know I should have done better. I wish I had, to be very honest. But when we know better and we do better, then thank God for that. Let me get to some of the comments.
Go ahead. While you read through the comments, I was going to say another profession that you see the stereotype in is restaurants. And I've seen waiters and waitresses when they see a table full of us, like, I don't want that one, because the assumption is we're going to be rude, rowdy, and it'd be bad tips. And I've seen the negotiation, and the waiter or waitress comes over there haphazardly, doesn't want to serve because they just assume you get ready to get a $3 tip or no tip at all. And it's terrible because I'm actually a very good tipper. But I feel bad, and some, like you said, overcompensating.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will give more than a 20% tip because I'm like, okay, well, if I come back, I don't want them to be like, oh, they're the guy that didn't tip or whatever. And I do try to bust the stereotype amongst us. So if I'm with a group of African Americans and they don't tip right, then I'm like, hey, man, listen, they got to work like I do. But sometimes you just assume that
Right.
I'm not going to get paid if I work this African American table.
Well, I was in Ohio recently, and I went to 2 African American owned restaurants, and one was called Zanzibar.
Yep.
The other, I don't remember the name, but it was in downtown Cleveland. You ain't got to worry about tipping. You want to know why?
They take it out automatically.
They take it out automatically. It says it on the menu. And 18% gratuity will be included in both of the restaurants.
Yeah.
Okay? By the way, I had the best grits I ever had in my life in Zanzibar.
Really?
I have never, they were like fluffy. Like they weren't grainy. They almost was like oatmeal, but it was grits. I don't know what they put in it, but yeah, they add the tip right to it. Let's see. Sandra Scruggs on Facebook says, I have found immigrants have a preconceived notion about African American people. That's, Mark, you talked about that. Where they get it, I don't know. Maybe they're resettlement groups, media, Fox News. That's what Sandra says. That's okay. That's back to the buses. Sandra says also, and Herb Bellamy Sr. was responsible for helping so many people get good, and she puts it in capital, jobs in court and corporate. Kamal says, how do we help those who are on the lower scale survive and rise? I say this all the time. It's all about knowledge. It's all about continuing to teach. When we look at when we get money, even what we do with it and how we spend it. When we devalue education, I don't think that everybody has to go to college. I do think everybody has to figure out what they're good at and what they like to do, and make money at it. And I have met so many people. My electrician, who has his own business and has for years now, said that I inspired him to get his own business because when I first met him, John, he was working for a company, but he was good. And I asked him here, they were doing True Bethel. Why don't you have your own company? And I remember him going like, I don't know. And I said, I get it. You got a stable job, but do you know how much more money you could make having your own company? And to this day, he's still our electrician. To this day, still our electrician. Who puts in my heating and all that? It's Peterson. African American. That's who does it. Now, there's other things that I haven't been successful in finding an African American business, but I at least try without saying I won't. Because these stereotypes of how bad we are. Tina Johnson says, my second granddaughter just started Winthrop College, and I told he never forgot that you are just as worthy to be there. And it's in the middle of the South. Always keep your respect. Always keep your respect to yourself. So many of our young people are angry. Tina Johnson, who said that? Robin Worthy. Tina Johnson says, group of people went to restaurant. That happened, but we still left $25. They need mentors to help them with business. I totally agree. With the business side of it, Daphne says, mentoring is so important. The problem is getting to the people who need the mentoring and the people who need the mentoring knowing they need the mentoring.
Right.
Because some people, they don't want to listen. And they've been conditioned not to listen or to learn and think they can figure it all out for themselves. This discussion has been good. I've realized the hour is growing late. I'm so sorry, but great discussion. We got to keep this discussion going. Hobson's, the doctor of dry cleaning, is one of the reasons we're able to be on this station. Take your clothes, take your sneakers, take your hats. 874 East Delavan, Hobson's, the doctor of dry cleaning. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes, 3 locations to serve you, 347 Peckham, 2528 Bailey, 1275 Sycamore. This week, among others, they service the Kidd family, the Coleman family, the Hodari family, the Hussein family, and others. 1275 Sycamore, in your hour of need. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home. I give you the number, but you can call the operator if people still do that, or go right to the internet and put in Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes, and the number will come up and appear in your hour of need. Listen, I'm going to get ready to throw it back over to Shoddy Swag. Did I say that right? Shoddy Swag. Turning it over to Shoddy Swag back in the station. Until next week, power to the people.